Hi, it's Kirith here and welcome to another GT Sport video, and this is going to be a quick tips video on how to improve your DR ranking, how to get that driver rating up in GT Sport. Now in the last couple of weeks I've gone from the depths of DR rank D, which is pretty much as low as you can go, back up to DR rank A, and I'm going to give you the tips and techniques that I use to do that. If you do like these videos, please feel free to subscribe. It's crazy we've got so many subscribers already, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you have in the comments. Just want to say two things before we begin. Firstly, I don't consider myself to be some kind of expert driver. I didn't take racing games or racing that seriously until a couple of years ago, so I really do think these tips in this video are going to help whether you've got loads of natural talent or not. And the other thing I want to say is that there are loads of places to go where you can get good quality racing without worrying about your driver ranking. For example, lobbies and leagues, and I'm going to put a link to a league I race in the description below so you can see the great racing there, and that's not driver ranking dependent. But of course, if you want to pick up the points in the FIA championships, nations, manufacturers, and also be competing in the daily races and having a better quality of racing, then you need to be thinking about your DR ranking. So we're going to go straight into it. Tip number one is qualifying, and there are a couple of reasons why qualifying is so important for increasing your DR ranking. And the first of these, and perhaps the most important, is track familiarity, and by that I mean knowing your braking points, knowing where the car wants to oversteer, where it wants to understeer, knowing where you're good on the track and knowing where you're not, because that's going to inform you about overtaking, and just generally knowing how to put in consistent lap times. Now I think track familiarity is something that's often overlooked by drivers that struggle with their DR ranking, but I think it's so important because races are really dynamic. You'll be racing around drivers that are faster than you, slower than you, messier than you, cleaner than you, and just knowing where you are in relation to the track, knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are, is so important because it just gives you a consistent base in which to work on. Now the other reason we're qualifying that's a lot more obvious is that the faster you qualify, the quicker you qualify, the higher up the grid you'll be for the race start. I'm not really going to talk about this because it is so obvious, but just to say, loads of stuff happens on lap 1, especially turn 1, lap 1 usually, so if you're ahead of all that, you're just going to be gapping yourself from the cars behind. Now tip number 2 for increasing your DR rating is to be strategic in the races. So think of the big picture, think about increasing your ranking, and to not get sucked into every scrap possible. Now we're going to have a look at a video here at Monza Daily Races C this week, and you can see I'm in a group at the front of the race. I was first going into that straight and now ended up fourth, so lost a load of positions, but as we're going to see, I'm not going to panic in this situation because if I get into a crazy scrap, all that's going to happen is I'm going to get sucked into a battle, we're going to lose time, the pack behind us are going to catch up, and then there'll be so many variables, so many cars flying into overtaking opportunities that we're just going to lose contact with the drivers ahead. So you can see here, playing it very patient, not going to try and do a crazy move on the guy in front. I think I'm actually going to try and bump draft him if possible, to just keep in touch with the leaders. And this actually puts pressure on the leaders and they might make a mistake themselves. Now there are some ways you could be strategic about keeping this big picture view. So in the daily race C or the FIA races where you have to make a pit stop, you can use that pit stop to put yourself in clear air. So you might choose to make a really early pit stop, drop behind everyone else, put in some consistent lap times in clean air, and then when everyone else is fighting, by the time they come into the pits, you're just going to jump them. So you can see here we're all racing very cleanly, and the gap now to 5th place is about 1.5 seconds, so we've increased that gap. Now this technique I picked up with karting, where you do often build temporary alliances, you make truces with other drivers out on track. Sometimes almost telepathically, and other times you'll actually signal with 2 fingers, let's work as a team. Now in this video we've actually been quite patient up until now, but it looks like the front 3 are starting to fight, so let's see what happens as we go into turn 1 and whether we can pick up the pieces. And again, it's quite psychological this. If you just go in and you're fighting all the time, I don't think you're really taking a strategic view of the race, whereas I'm now switching from a mode of working with the guy in front to now, okay, let's see what happens here. They're weaving across the track, someone's going to make a move, and sure enough the guy in 3rd place does. The guy in 1st breaks very early, there's a bit of carnage there. Are we going to pick up here? No, not really, because someone goes into us, but we're still, we lost someone behind us. So we're kind of as we were, but actually the front 3 drivers are all going to have the red mist. We're the only driver probably thinking a bit clearly here. We actually lost the S-rated driver, so definitely some DR points to pick up. Let's see what happens as we go into the second chicane. If everyone's going to make a move, then we can sweep up the pieces, and we're quite a nice distance away to do that, so let's see what happens. And sure enough, they're fighting, someone runs wide, he's going to come back on the track, and there's a little gap that opens up. And can we squeeze it through? Be very careful on the throttle, and we're going to go side by side into the first Lesmo. But we just about get it done. We don't get too much of a nudge in. Now the second Lesmo, can we finish the job? He's got the inside line, so he's actually got the advantage. Sure enough, he dives through. and we've got an overspeed, but we're going to give him a little bump here because that's not the place to fight. If I was going to try and do a crazy move there and drive to the inside, I'm just going to let the guy in third place make a move on both of us. But actually this going into Ascari is the opportunity to take the lead around the outside. Can I brake a bit later? Yes, just about, and get it turned into the first part of Ascari. And yeah, we get the move done. So that was all about strategy. So we bided our time. We didn't lose contact with the group ahead. Going to be a bit of a drag race going down to Parabolica, but I've got the inside line. Now we're going to skip ahead to look at an example of my third technique, which is staying calm under pressure. Now if you want to pick up those DR points, you're going to be in the lead, and you're going to have to be aware that stuff happens. I know someone's going to make a crazy move, and because of that, I'm ready to counter steer to the right going through that chicane. I think that saves me. I think if I wasn't kind of ready for that, it would have caught me too much by surprise and I would have spun out. And I think this goes to a wider point, which is that if you've done your qualifying, if you've got your track familiarity, if you know that you're starting high up the grid, then you should expect to be at some point in the lead. And if you're going to be in the lead, you're going to come under immense pressure from cars behind, doing anything to get past you. And when you think about that, it's quite logical that someone's going to make a suicide attempt coming into the second chicane there. And that gets you ready for it. But if you're not kind of mentally prepared for that, then it might take you by surprise. You'll end up spinning out, and then you'll be incredibly frustrated at why someone's ruined your race when you were just minding your own business in the lead. So that's our third point, which is staying calm under pressure, but it ties in with track familiarity, I think. The more you know the track, the more you know what situation around you, the calmer you're going to be, and you can just win your race. Now this is going to bring us on to our fourth and final tip, which actually incorporates all of the techniques we talked about so far. The single best way to improve your DR ranking in GT Sport is to get really familiar with one track and one car, qualify so you're going to be at the top of the grid for every race, and then win your races from pole position. Now it sounds easier said than done, but if you spend the time to qualify, then you're quickly going to find your kind of current fastest lap. Now if you spend even more time, then you're going to bring that fastest lap down even further. You're going to find new time on the track, and I really enjoy the process of discovering a track. I can spend ages in qualifying and just kind of bringing that time down. And then if you know that you're going to be starting at the front of the grid, then you're going to be thinking about that strategy early on. You can think about what tyres to start on, you think about how to navigate turn one, you're going to expect to be in the lead, and when you're in the lead, you're just going to be able to churn out consistent lap times because you're going to be familiar with the track. And once you do that, you can just be increasing your driver ranking race after race, and that's what I was able to do in Monza this week. Start at the front of the grid, and in most races just pull away. So you can see already in this race, couple of corners in, and we've already got that important 2-second gap to the car behind, so he's out slipstream range, so they're going to be battling, and hopefully we can put in consistent lap times now. So let's flip through the lap times and see what we've got. Now I know from my track familiarity that I can do high 48s to low 49s, so that's kind of what we're doing now. And again, it's really important to say that I don't think I'm the fastest driver in this race. I'm definitely not doing the fastest lap times, but just by putting myself at the front of the grid, out of trouble, no one can get in my slipstream behind, that's going to give us the race victory here. Got 18 on the front of the car, so they're going to be picking up some nice DR points. And if we look at the fastest laps here, you can see that I'm definitely not the fastest driver. So that brings it all together for this video. My top tip, do the qualifying, get familiar with the track, stick to a track and a car, try and start the race near the front of the grid, do whatever you can to stay at the front, and then consistent lap times. And that is how you will increase your DR ranking. Do let me know in the comments your thought on these tips, and I will see you next time.